Hello, everyone. Welcome to Decoding Downtowns, brought to you by Vistity. In this podcast, we dive deep with leaders from business improvement districts across the nation, revealing the strategies that are shaping the future of urban development and economic growth. Thanks for joining us.
It's Decoding Downtowns. I'm Jamie Schwartzman. Thanks for joining us again. Today, we'll be meeting with Amanda Elliott. She's the Redevelopment Program Manager at Gilbert, Arizona. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background?
Sure, Jamie. Thanks so much for having me here and certainly for having us here to share the story of Gilbert. So it's interesting, when I talk to other urban place managers and economic developers, there's not like one particular path we all take to get into the roles that we're in. So my background, I've been with the town of Gilbert for 12 years and I've loved every minute of it. It has been such an exciting time to be part of this community. I started in the private sector, so I worked both for developers and contractors for a little over a decade. My background was in business, and so I had a degree in business with international business and marketing as my focus. And then I have a master's in public administration with public policy. So hence the community connection there. And then I'm also a member of the International Downtown Association. Woo-woo. I was a participant in the Emerging Leaders Program in 2017, and I have my certification in the Leader in Place Management. And then I also, alongside our neighboring town, Queen Creek, Jen Lindley, who is their downtown development manager, we formed a group called AZ Downtowns. And so it's an informal collective of downtowns across the state of Arizona. We meet to vent a little bit about the challenges that we all face, but really to lift each other up and help each other solve problems. And then, really learn from each other, maybe steal a best practice here or there along the way.
Awesome. Oh, well, I'm very excited to have you here today. Give us a little overview of Gilbert, Arizona, and share what makes it unique and exciting.
Well, I love that you called it Gilbert, Arizona, because we are the largest town in the United States. So a lot of locals here, we definitely love our town nomenclature. We have 288,000 residents, so quite a big town. We're 72 square miles. And then our downtown, which we'll be talking about today, is known as the Heritage District. It's 0.3 square miles. And we have about 5 million visits to downtown each year. So it is definitely a place that people bring family and friends, and then those from out of town who want to learn about Gilbert head to our Heritage District. It's a foodie destination. So any kind of food you want to find is available in downtown. And year-round, visitors can catch a show at the longest running family-owned theater. And the plays there are held in the round style. So it's very intimate. And we're also told that people really love to visit our downtown because it's very uniquely Gilbert. So we work with our development community to make sure that every aspect, our buildings to our streets, all are reminiscent of Gilbert. So, for example, if you came down here, you'd find a very Americana main street. You would see things like neon signage and neon lighting at night, some moments with these really cool lights that look like giant hoops, and they look like they're maybe a public art piece, but we're actually part of a capital improvement project we had done with the city. And then we even have some roadside architecture. So we had a private developer who kind of has this Midas touch in our community, a longstanding family member. And he had said, Gilbert's turning 100. And I want to do something really unique. I want to create a roadside architecture piece because on main streets across the US, you had, these pieces. So for example, you probably think of roadside architecture and think of the big donut. Well, in Gilbert, we have a gopher. Gophers were the nemesis of all of our farmers in the area. And we are historically a farming community. And so our gopher sits on our main street with a hat on his head and his name is Topo. So we really artfully and carefully curate the downtown. I think that that's what visitors really love about Gilbert.
Great. So tell me a little bit more about you. What inspired you as an inspired leader to get involved and pursue this current path?
Okay, well, so I mentioned I was in private sector before working for the community, and I definitely would say that I have a public servant's heart. I wanted to be able to give back to a community. And while I loved the projects that I was able to work on in the private sector, I felt that I could do more good in the public sector. And so I got to know Gilbert because I was actually working on a project in the private sector with Gilbert. And after that project, the community asked me if I would volunteer for a steering committee to help serve as an individual to help guide their 5-year strategic plan for economic development. And honestly, I was just like I was gobsmacked by this community because they were so thoughtful in the way that they planned for the future and the way that they embraced the community and brought them into the fold to the communications and the direction for where we wanted to head. So when a job opened up, I applied, and I'm really glad I did. But, at the end of the day, I think, what inspired me to pursue this really comes down to being a kid. And as a kid, I have two siblings. I have an older brother and a younger sister. My older brother was always on the Nintendo, right? Like loved Mario, all of like Contra, all of the games on Nintendo. And I loved to be on the PC playing SimCity, just figuring out how does a city work when you start to put together all of the parts and pieces. And it was just really, really neat. And so again, when I applied for Gilbert's job, I really fully did, honestly, and full disclosure, didn't understand all that I was getting into with downtown development because there's so many facets to it. And in Arizona, for example, we have some pretty challenging business improvement district enabling legislation. So Gilbert, for example, while I work for the community, we don't have a business improvement district that manages things like the clean, green, so your trees and safe, which is really, that's that foundational piece for a downtown. But I've learned all of that along the way, thanks to organizations like the International Downtown Association and the Arizona Association for Economic Development. Learned so much through those, but I definitely look at what I'm doing today, and it reminds me very much of that young, 10-year-old me playing SimCity. So I just feel very fortunate to be doing something that I love.
Cool. Explain to me a little bit about the organization. How are you guys structured, and what role do you play in supporting economic development?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, so I'm with the municipality, and we don't have a business improvement district that would do all of the management of downtown. So I'm in the Office of Economic Development, and we have 3 lines of service in the Economic Development Office. We have the traditional lines of service of economic development, which is, your business attraction, your business retention, and then that also has a marketing individual embedded and a data analyst, which we call our data scientist. That's the formal title. And then we have a line of service for tourism. And then the line of service I oversee is redevelopment. So that line of service not only looks at long-range planning for redevelopment and working with all of the departments across the town, our elected officials and our public, but we also manage the day-to-day, all of the intricacies of managing a downtown.
I see. And your funding comes from?
It comes from our general fund.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the district, and what challenges you're facing. And I'd like to know specifically, what challenges are you facing in promoting economic development, and some ideas of what you're doing to solve them?
Yeah, so I think maybe if we step back, not only like related to downtown, but holistically economic development in our municipality, reaching our target audience is probably the biggest challenge we have, because we have a number of programs that can help assist businesses thrive and grow, particularly those, independent retailers, restaurateurs, your real startup businesses. So we have programs like Size Up or Next Level. So that's a program that helps build a talent pipeline by offering professional skills training. We have scholarships for business owners that are interested in developing their skills. So in things like finance, for example. But there are so many channels for communication and communicating that it can sometimes be hard to reach our audience. We do have an embedded marketing expert who can help us, navigate some of those challenges and those channels. And then we also work with our Office of Digital Government to help with that. But it can be really difficult sometimes to reach those individuals who are busy with their day-to-day work. And then I would also say, from a downtown perspective, while this isn't necessarily promoting, our biggest challenge is lack of available space. I think that that's a challenge that everyone wants to have, but we're really limited on our vacancies. So we have a lot of groups that would like to be in downtown, but because we have such a low vacancy and then we have very high rents, it can really price out, some of those, again, those local entrepreneurs that really make a downtown so special and unique. What we've done, we are the largest landowner. So that's a little bit different. So as the municipality, we own 55% of the non-residential land. And we are able to use the land that we own then to put it into the hands of the development community, and really specify what we want to see from the development community. And so from the standpoint of garnering more, local mom and pop retailers, we can specify and create stipulations that say we want to see smaller retail spaces in your facilities that cater to mom and pops, or we have carved out some unique mobile retail vending spaces along our parks and pedestrian pathways. So those are just some of the ways that we're starting to overcome those challenges.
Interesting. So with the ownership of land in your district, are you doing like long-term land leases to developers, or how do you guys activate the property that you guys own?
Yeah, we have not done any long-term land leases at this point, but we have certainly looked at that opportunity. It's really come down to, council's directive to dispose of the property. So what we do is we put the properties out to a request for proposal from the developers, and we really ask them to bring your highest and best ideas. We know that we like to think that we're the most creative individuals at the table, but we know that that's not always the case. And so we select a group to negotiate a development and disposition agreement with based on the RFPs we receive.
And so you guys retain ownership of the land, developer develops on the land you own, or do you end up selling the land to the developer?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie, for clarifying that. We actually sell the land to the developer, and it creates a little bit of a challenge in the sense that we spent 30 years acquiring this land, and to hand it over, it is a little nerve-wracking at times, but the funds that we receive from those land sales can also be instituted in downtown for other projects that we have on board.
And then you can pick and choose the developer that maybe is the one who wins the bid in order to get access to the parcel.
Exactly. And so here's a great example. We had one parcel, it was about 9 acres, and we specified, the kind of uses we'd like to see on there. But we had 2 critical pieces we really wanted to see from an infrastructure standpoint. We wanted a linear park that faced Main Street. And we really called that out because we had some businesses and other developments that were kind of hidden and didn't have that, the same
Visibility.
frontage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they didn't have the same visibility and frontage. And so this little linear park creates a visibility corridor for all of those retailers along there. And so we were able to write that stipulation into our development agreement. We were able to ask for financial contributions to downtown and art included. And then we also are creating a pedestrian corridor. So that will start on that particular piece that's on the northern portion of our district. And we were able to ask them to include that in their development. So we are able to, specify what we'd like to see through those development agreements.
Fascinating. Very, very fascinating. So actionable advice. If you could give one piece of actionable advice to our listeners regarding, their involvement in economic development, what would that be?
Okay, I'm going to talk to downtown suburban downtowns, and perhaps this is an obvious response, but for us, it's really been finding brokers that will champion your area. So again, we're a suburb of, Phoenix, and a lot of the brokers in our area really, they focus on the areas where they live and work. And so as a suburb, if they haven't been out here, it can sometimes be really hard to attract them, 1, to come out here to visit, 2, to tell them what's great about our area because they're so focused on their own. We have a really great broker that we work with. His name is TJ, and he's with Ox Urban. And so I tell everyone, find your TJ, because that individual will help position, the great things that you're doing in your own downtowns. You just have to find one, and then they'll follow. And I would also say, that it's not limited to brokers alone. We've had some really great business owners that have entered our market who have wanted to share the Gilbert message. And we use every opportunity we could to put them on camera or provide written testimonials and share those out to brokers and developers. And I'll give just one example. We have a group called Upward Projects. They develop in the Southwest here. Postino is one of their concepts. It's a wine bar. And their owner really, when he came to Gilbert, he started singing our praises and saying, you guys have to be here. You have no idea what opportunities there are, to other restaurateurs. And we had, different restaurateurs, who are well known, then entering our market. And this same individual, even as recently as last month, was telling a group of our residents how great it is to be part of Gilbert. And so we love those individuals who are willing to provide us a great testimonial, and we hope that we continue to make them happy.
Let's talk a little bit about data. and economic development data. And what's the most valuable data that you guys are tracking from the standpoint of investors, developers, and community stakeholders?
Well, I think data continues to be one of the most important things that we can be providing. And for us, Placer has been a game changer, certainly on the tourism front and being able to track where our visitors are coming from, but that's also helped us empower our merchants, because they now understand their consumer better, and brokers and developers being able to provide them. I mean, when you sit down and think about 5 million visits to a 0.3 square mile area, that really hits home with those developers and brokers. So I would say that that's probably one of the most important pieces that we've been communicating. But we also, as a growing suburb, we worked with a group called Urban 3. They're out of Asheville, North Carolina, and they do geospatial modeling that demonstrates visually the economic productivity of your downtown. And this was really important data for us because we wanted to communicate with our elected officials, what policy needs we had and actions we needed to take in order to strengthen, the financial resiliency of downtown. And not just that, Gilbert doesn't have a primary property tax. And so we rely heavily on sales tax revenue. And so this was our opportunity to show, some of the trade-offs on, what decisions can help us grow community wealth overall in this one particular, dense urban core.
And then, how about in just how you're getting that word out there, the storytelling component of economic development? Like, how are you telling the story of economic development, and how do you think that's changing?
Yeah, when I came on board 12 years ago, the town had a real push towards digital communications. And so in 2013, they created our Office of Digital Government created what was called a digital roadmap. And they mirrored this off of New York City. And it really shifted those traditional models of marketing to those digital based platforms. And so part of this was really striving to meet our audience where they were online. And, from an attraction standpoint, the high quality of life and vibrant urban environments continue to be, a top requirement for companies that are locating or want to stay in an area. So in addition to, the digital storytelling, we used, enticing imagery and sound bites. And I think that's where having tourism, redevelopment, and traditional economic development all in one department has been beneficial. But it's really interesting because we are a data-driven organization. And so no matter what story we're telling, whether it's, the investment, or attracting private investment by communicating our full cash value per acre or sales tax revenue or capital investment or jobs created, we really do all of that storytelling through the data that we have available.
Do you see yourself, continuing on developing additional digital tools and data visualization? Do you think that, continued investment in this area plays a role in achieving your district's objectives?
Yeah, no doubt, Jamie. I mean, we're continually evolving how we can be more transparent. And so we have open data portals to the public, and of course, the investors that we want to attract. But we're also, we have a City of the Future initiative. And so we're utilizing dashboards that help us, determine, our performance management goals and how we can share and relate those goals to our 10-year redevelopment plan and then communicate them back up to the public. We worked with ArcGIS Urban to create a model for downtown that can help us drive decisions related to density. So right now, our downtown has a 55-foot height by right, meaning a developer can only build up to 55 feet by right without having to do a planned area development. By using the ArcGIS Urban model, we can real time show people the difference in height and step backs and setbacks, shade at a street level to help make some of those decisions to help us, add a little density where it's necessary. And then we're also really kind of dipping our toe, and I'm really proud of the town for doing this, into the AI space. In February, we announced a chief AI strategist and transformation officer. And so they're examining alongside Microsoft how we can responsibly apply AI to our daily work. So it's just I find it to be a really exciting time to be in not only municipal work, but downtown work, because there's just so much opportunity.
So looking ahead, what are the main priorities that you have or initiatives that are going on in your district, in the coming 1 year?
Okay, in the coming 1 year. we continue to invest in infrastructure in our downtown through capital improvement project. So that's really critical as we're putting in new infrastructure that helps us attract that development. Alongside of that, that means that
what type of infrastructure are we talking about?
So for example, we are building a new roadway. We have one road, as I mentioned, kind of that Americana Main Street. And that's really our main entrance in and out of the district. We're creating some new circulation options that will help circulate in and around the district, create a better flow. We have 27,000 trips per day on that Main Street. One of the roads, for example, will help alleviate that, and we'll take about 8,000 trips per day off of that road and then put it onto a new road we're calling Von Ventilator. And that road is
traffic mitigation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and but the great thing about that one is that 8,000 trips per day is that sweet spot for retail shopping. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of does double duty. It creates additional circulation, but also, more visibility and opportunities for retail, which we desperately need because we are food and beverage heavy. So we're continuing those investments in the infrastructure. But the reality is, and I think anyone can understand this, construction causes construction fatigue. And so we have to mitigate that. And so we're working on campaigns and communications and opportunities, to just communicate with the public that we're still, our downtown businesses are open for business. We also last year we worked on creating a comprehensive wayfinding signage plan with a group called Multi-Studio. And this is our first wayfinding signage in downtown, which is kind of surprising because that is such a critical need. But they've done a great job in making this wayfinding uniquely Gilbert. We're really excited about that. So that the physical production and placement of those will happen this year. And then, of course, we're working on determining which requests for proposals for development come out next with the land that we own. So a lot of really great things happening in the next year.
Exciting. So let's move that marker out 5 years and to start talking about, more long-term goals. And, where do you see the long-term goals? What are we trying to achieve for the community? Talk to me about the larger long-term goals for envisioning those.
Yeah, I think one thing that might be helpful, just to kind of set the stage in our goal planning, we are a redevelopment area that's based on Arizona state statutes. You have to have a 10-year plan in place. And so our most recent 10-year plan was adopted in 2018. It is a community-driven plan. So we did 5 years of public outreach leading up to the development of that plan to really understand what the community wanted to see. And so there were 6 goals that really came out of that. One was preserving and promoting, the historic character of the area, quality urban design, and an emphasis on the human scale. So, kind of moving away from a car-centric district to a more walkable urban environment. That is definitely part of that infrastructure that we're putting in place. We also, the second goal was improving the economic viability of downtown. So I mentioned how we brought on Urban 3 to help look at, where are the policy decisions that we need? Which policy decisions do we need to make to help support that? Certainly reinvestment and attracting new development through the RFP process, promoting circulation, safe, direct, and convenient routes for all modes of transportation, including ped and bike. We had one that was promoting the symbolic and cultural center of the community. Again, this is where our town was started. And so how do we continue to promote that? We've been adding a lot of art. We've actually created opportunities where it was really difficult at one point to put a mural in downtown, for example. And we worked through our planning department and our legal department to essentially remove any requirements for these murals because they were so difficult. The nebulous nature of art, right? One person likes an art piece and one person doesn't. And so we wanted to streamline that. And so again, this is a goal of downtown. So long as it met our decency code, people can put up a mural, and we've seen so much art pop up. It's been really lovely. And then I would say, maintaining the partnerships we have, not only with the business community and the development community, but with our residents and our property owners. And then, bringing that all together with town leadership and staff. So we've got those 6 major goals that we're focused on as we kind of close out this next half of our redevelopment plan.
Cool. And it sounds like 2028 will be the next one right now. So
that is correct.
Planning process now?
Yes, we actually started our planning process. Our individual who oversees downtown day to day, she is our redevelopment project manager. Her name's Sydney Bethel Price, and she created this really cool opportunity in February. She had bought little hearts, like tiny little hearts, and spray painted them and had markers. And so we have this area where there was kind of a grid. And so people could take these hearts and hang. And the question was, what do you love about downtown? And so we called it our love letters to the Heritage District. We had it over Valentine's Day and throughout the month of February. And that kind of kicked off, this public engagement. So we shared with people, this is our first public engagement, in our 5-year process. It was a cool kind of interactive art piece. And we learned a lot about, what things we do need to preserve downtown. So great job to Sydney. She did awesome on that.
I love it.
That tactical urbanism, right? Of getting in there and painting things yourself and making things. It's a lot of fun.
Let's play make-believe for a moment and pretend that you and I are at the Academy of Magic. We've both been issued magic wands. And how would you use your magic wand to transform things to promote the vitality of Gilbert?
Oh, man. Well, I would definitely say a balance in the mix of uses that we have downtown. Again, right now we're food and beverage heavy. Retail's in a strange spot, offices in a strange spot. We have a lot of support for residential in downtown, which is excellent. But we definitely need that mix to just ensure that we have that 18-hour city. We are already, I would say, a multi-generational downtown. There's something for everyone, but just that the uses, I think, is what's going to ensure the economic vitality in the long run. And then I would say if that magic wand, that we could somehow figure out how to not price out those really unique mom and pop shops that really are the heart of our downtown, especially if we're talking about the cultural and symbolic center of who Gilbert is. That's exactly the kind of people we need to remain uniquely Gilbert.
Do you think it's a supply and demand issue?
Right now, yes, most definitely. I think once we have more product come online, we will see more opportunities for those mom and pops. But I say that, but I don't know. I mean, we have, neighboring cities that, in their new buildings, they're really struggling again because their rents are so high. It's really kind of the long-standing property owners who've owned, a piece for a long time, who's willing to kind of invest in those, startup businesses. I think there's maybe some nervousness, right, around taking a gamble on a startup company, and understandably so, but they are really the heart of who we are in Gilbert.
Well, before we wrap up, can you share how our listeners can stay connected to you or learn from you or learn more about the projects that you're working on?
Yeah, sure. So we do have a LinkedIn page. It's Gilbert, Arizona's Office of Economic Development. And then if your followers are on Facebook, it's at Gilbert Town Hall. On Instagram, you can find us at Discover Gilbert or at Gilbert Your Town. And then we have a plethora of information on our websites. gilbertaz.gov is our government page. So that's all the fun nuts and bolts of downtown. That's where you can find those, our redevelopment plan, our design guidelines, those type of things. Discover Gilbert has all of our tourism information. And then if you're looking for information specifically about relocating or growing your business in Gilbert, Gilbert EDI as an economic development information, gilbertedi.com is the place to go.
Amanda Elliott, thank you so much for joining us today. Your insights have been incredibly valuable, and we're excited to see the impact of your work on urban development. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Decoding Downtowns. If you'd like to stay connected with Amanda, you can reach out via the contact methods that she mentioned. We'd also like to thank Vistity for sponsoring this podcast. Vistity is dedicated to transforming urban districts with innovative digital tools that enhance economic development. Learn more about their solutions at vistity.com. Until next time, keep exploring and innovating in your districts.
Thank you for joining us today for Decoding Downtowns. If you've enjoyed our podcast, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's brought to you by Vistity, the leading geospatial visualization platform for data-driven decisions. Stay connected, stay informed, and let's continue to shape the future of our cities together. Until next time, I'm Jamie Schwartzman.